Right guys, welcome to the Trading Field Sunday Routine. So as always, what we're going to be doing is running through last week's trades, looking at the charts and the movements that happened last week. And then we'll be looking at the week ahead and actually some of our buying and selling zones on the respective markets. So first of all, what we're going to do is just cover the actual news events this week and what's actually potentially going to be affecting the markets. So as you can see, first of all, nothing popping up on Monday. Monday's just a little bit of noise, but no high impact events occurring on Monday. So Tuesday, what we've got is we've got the Reserve Bank of Australia, the minutes from the meetings. So this is obviously going to impact the Aussie dollar, and this is around midnight UAE time in terms of the Aussie dollar high impact news. We then have a little bit more. We've got a little bit on euro, a few little bits on unemployment rates for GBP, and we also have the minutes from the Bank of Japan as well, their monetary policy minutes as well, later on in the evening on Tuesday. Come Wednesday, we've got a lot of USD news. Okay, so we've got obviously monetary policy statements, we've got projections, we've got interest rate decisions, and although there's not going to be any expected changes to the interest rates, obviously, as we know, the US dollar could be quite volatile during this time. We also have GDP figures for the New Zealand dollar later that evening as well. And as we come into Thursday, Thursday is a very busy day when it comes to the high impact economic news. So we've got some unemployment rates coming up for Australia. We then have interest rate decisions for the Swiss franc, and we also have the Bank of England vote as well coming in on the midday time on Thursday. That will be followed by the Bank of England minutes as well. So obviously expect a lot of volatility on that pound. And that's obviously alongside everything that's happening with Brexit at the moment as well. As we come to the end of the week with Friday, we've got a little bit of Euro news coming out, some manufacturing PMIs, and also we have some Canadian dollar news later on in regards to retail sales as well, and again CPI. So that is the news events for the week ahead. So these are obviously markets that we will be looking out for. Obviously just be careful around these times. The markets will be quite volatile, but hopefully it can allow us to get some good opportunities and some good entries on specific markets based on these news events as well. So what I'll do now is I'll just jump into the charts. We'll run through last week's trades and we'll see how that panned out.
Right guys, so let's go through some of the trades that we took last week and the chart work behind them, and just in terms of how many pips we managed to achieve in the following markets. So our first one, USD CAD, was one of our first trades of the week. We were obviously very, very bearish on this. This was our pick of the week from last week. And as you can see, it's fallen nicely and done exactly what we expected. So we entered the market, okay, around this point, and as you can see, we were hardly in loss at all throughout the whole journey of this trade. We did manage to secure around 2.2 units on this one, which is equivalent to around 124-25 pips or so. We took off the majority of our profits around the 1.332 level just to be safe, once we sort of found that there was a little bit of support coming, okay, from this area here. But nonetheless, a very, very good trade, 120 pips or so. So really nice start to the week for us. We also had a trade on USD CHF. Okay, USD CHF, again, didn't even touch the loss whatsoever. Okay, we fell very, very nicely. We did originally have a target of 1.0, but as we come very close to that target a couple of times, and it was coming to the end of the week on Friday, we decided to take profits a little bit early, but actually still receiving a very good risk reward and a good 50 pips or so on this trade. We then had a long position on Aussie dollar, US dollar. Now this one started very, very well, and as you can see, it was a bit of choppy price action on here. Okay, so three attempts we've made to kind of break these highs around this 709 level, but we certainly were failing for the time being. So we've obviously took out the profits on this one at 7090, okay, which is equivalent to around 40 pips or so on this market. So still a good trade for the week. We closed up shop by the end of the week. We did have a trade on FTSE, which started off going very, very well. That's this scenario here. And as you can see, we actually fell immediately around 40-50 pips or so, which was really nice to see. But what we've done is we've actually taken support, okay, at this level here, and we rebounded quite quickly. We did hope Obviously, when holding this trade, sometimes we will get out of them a little bit early if needs be. But we did kind of hope that what was going to happen is we were actually going to just create a lower high here and then perhaps try and attempt again to go lower. But as you can see, we just fought through the bearish selling pressure and we just headed much higher. So this one was an unsuccessful trade for us. We then had Euro Aussie dollar. Okay, so first of all, again, we had a very nice entry. Literally fell straight away. Okay, about 40 pips or so. And unfortunately, overnight, we then kind of reversed and started pulling up towards our stop. Now, nonetheless, we did actually find a second entry on this market to go short that we really liked. And we finished up the week with about 45 pips or so on this one as well. So we actually took about 45 pips on this, and our stop was very tight. So it was a good 1.3 risk reward, I believe, off the top of my head. We also had a trade on Euro JPY, which again started very nicely, but as you can see, the market just kind of pulled back very quickly. And again, we just thought we'd wait, see if we're going to take support at this, take resistance, at this level. But unfortunately, the market actually just swung and tapped into our stop before actually inevitably heading higher. So unsuccessful on Euro JPY. Germany was probably the most frustrating one of the week for everybody. Okay, so the DAX market, we had a trade which we had an absolute phenomenal entry. Okay, we saw the steps, we saw that what was happening at the top, and we pretty much managed to catch this trade at the very top. Okay, right here, and immediately the market fell about 75 pips or so. We had a much bigger target for this one, but as soon as we sort of hit that major level, we actually rebounded. Okay, and in hindsight, what we perhaps should have done is taken a little bit of profit off the table, moved the stops up, and then obviously secured a bit of profit on this one. But as you can see, the market actually just rejected this 11,550 level and headed higher. Okay, so that was an unsuccessful one for us. We had a really good trade at the end of the week, GBP Aussie dollar. Okay, again, fantastic entry on this one. Again, we did this one pretty much live with our members that we had our trading field meetup. We all went out, we had a shisha, had a good chat, had a good laugh about the markets and how everything's panned out over the last 3 months or so. And it's also very interesting to hear about people's emotional attachment to trades and sort of common mistakes and things like that people make, because it obviously helps us teach you guys better. So GBP Aussie dollar, nice trade, 160 pips, really nice trade. And our target was absolute perfection. Okay, as you can see, we had 86.3 for our target, and we managed to literally tap into that before actually reversing and heading higher. And then finally, the final trade that I think we closed off by the end of the week was CAD JPY. We spotted a nice short opportunity, which again was done actually live with the members. And as you can see, we managed to, it's quite a small trade, quite a very short-term trade. It was a Thursday night that we did it, so there was only 24 hours left in the market. We did come out a little bit early. We did want to kind of pull down to this kind of 83.3 level. But obviously, as I said, coming to the end of the week, we always like to sort of close up shop, tidy up all our positions ready for the week ahead. So 83.55 is where we come out, made a good 25 pips or so on that one. And that is everything for the previous week. So what Yasser will do now is he'll go through the week ahead and some of the buying zones, selling zones, and actually the markets that we'll be focusing on. Thanks, guys.
Welcome to the analysis for the week ahead. You're going to have to bear with me. I'm a little bit bunged up over the weekend, but the members come first. So here's the analysis for the week ahead. Now, the first thing that you'll notice is that we're looking at a lot less markets for the week ahead. So yeah, I mean, sometimes in the Forex market, less is definitely more. So let's start off with the Euro pairs. Euro NZD. We are long on this market. Okay, so we are expecting a slight pullback in and around this region here. Okay, but we may not get to, we may just retest this major level around the 1.65 region. If we do, we'll look at the price action here and then look for another couple of hundred pips up to the 1.67 region. Now, moving on to Euro Aussie dollar. Obviously, this is one of the trades that we were holding at the back end of last week. Now, I did say in the voice note in the Telegram that I did actually really like this trade for the long run as well. It's literally got the head and shoulder pattern on all types of time frames. There's even a head and shoulder within a head and shoulder. So yeah, we are still bearish on this. I just didn't want to hold this, especially that we were 1.5 units up already on this trade. But just to get the best type of risk reward on this, we will be looking for a slight pullback just to create that another shoulder, to see similar rejections, and then be able to go short on this market. Now excuse me. Now moving on to the commodity, which is gold, for the likes of Pritesh and Andre and the rest of you that really like this market. So the ultimate bias on this market is still bearish. Okay, we are still looking for the big short as such, from in and around the 1320 region, bringing it all the way down to the lows of 1280 to 1270. Okay, but should we get a slight pullback, okay, just to retest this region in and around the 1298 region, we'll look for an intraday long position to take us into our supply zone. Now, you'll notice the only indice that we're looking at is Germany 30, also known as DAX. FTSE has been given the boot, courtesy of the votes on the Telegram. So you'll be glad to know it's just DAX that we're looking at. Now, a couple of scenarios with DAX. We are looking for a big short on this one as well, but there are a couple of scenarios. We could potentially just continue to ride this bullish momentum up to the supply zone of 11,800, where we could then see that short come into play, or we may just pull back and retest this region here, the breakout region, where we will look for an intraday long position into our supply zone. Now moving on to the GBP pairs. Sorry, I did warn you that I am a little bit bunged up. Now moving on to the GBP Aussie dollar. Okay, we believe this to be a little fake out actually. You'll notice this happen a lot when you study the charts, just to trick people into going long in the market. But however, we will be looking for another pullback in and around this region. Okay, we may not get it all the way up to the 1.885 region, but we'll watch the price action very closely on this and then enter and look for a short on this position down to the 1.85 region. Now moving on to GBP Swiss, we are pretty much hovering in and around the supply zone already, so we're looking for a slight pullback. Okay, you can see how many spikes are in and around this region, so we'll look for something similar. Look for those spikes once again. Look at the price action, but our ultimate bias on this market is short. Okay, so then we'll look for another 150 pips or so down to the 1.325 region. Now, a successful trade on GBP NZD last week. We will be looking for a long on this market for the week ahead. Okay, so we'll look for a slight pullback into our demand zone. You can see it's a decent sized wicks in and around that region, indicating that there are a lot of buyers in this region. If we can get a touch of this trend line, that's an even better position for us. This is a major manipulation level as well. There's another trend line touch adding to the synchronization of this trade, and then we'll look for a long up to the 1.955 region. Now GBP USD, very similar to GBP Swiss, we are hovering in and around the supply zone already. Okay, we can see strong indication of sellers coming into this market already. However, we'll look for the price action already in and around this region, and then we'll look to go and take this short. Now moving on to Aussie dollar Swiss, we are currently riding this to the downside, creating lower highs on the 1 hour time frame. Okay, so we'll look for a slight pullback in and around this region here. Okay, just line up with this region, perhaps even pull a little bit higher and then take this market down lower. Now CAD JPY, so we were in this trade last week. The bias still remains short. Again, a couple of scenarios, we could potentially look for an intraday long position to take us in and around this manipulation zone of 84.5. However, we saw the 84 region reject quite nicely, and it has rejected quite nicely previously as well, so we may not get that pullback into our supply zone as such, but we will watch the price action in and around the 84 region, and then see if the opportunity presents itself for us to be able to take a short position on this market. Now USD, predominantly we remain with our bias of weakness for the USD for the week ahead as well. USD Swiss in particular, we had a really nice trade on this last week. We are looking for a slight pullback back into our supply zone, okay, just as a retest, and then we'll watch the price action there to bring us down. We very nearly hit our target, but we'll look for another position now to see if we can get there eventually this week. Now USD ZAR, we're actually long in this market. The likes of Justin will be happy to know. So we'll look for a retest of perhaps around the 14.25 region. Okay, a major manipulation zone. We did break and smash through this last week. Saw that retest, and then it continued to push higher. So we'll look for another retest and then hopefully take this up to the 14.625 region. And finally, to finish off with USD CAD. Again, our ultimate bias does remain as short for this pair. Now we may or may not get this pullback. If we do, and if we like the price action in and around this region, there may be an opportunity for an intraday long position on this market. But we'll just have to be careful to see if there are any rejections in and around the 1.335 region, to see if we can actually smash through that level, or if the market will just reject here, similar to here, retest this level and then begin to fall once again. Now that pretty much covers absolutely everything. A lot of you will be happy that there's no FTSE for the week ahead, but yeah, so there's a lot less pairs to focus on. We'll be looking at a few intraday positions as well, short snappy trades in and out, hopefully accumulating some more profits. And yeah, wish you all the best for the week ahead, and we'll see you in a few hours.